Victoria Herbert's next guest is designer and entrepreneur Cassandra Kane. Cassandra's highly innovative production model utilizes discarded materials and turns them into luxurious products. Stay tuned for Vicky's inspiring guest.
So Cassandra, it's so great to finally meet you. I'm so excited about your product and about learning about everything that you do.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and have this conversation. I love talking about sustainability and especially in the fashion industry. And I'm so excited to connect with you because I know you're so passionate about it.
What started you on this? I mean, I know you have a little bit of a lot of a fashion background, but what started you on this idea and what made you move to Florence?
So I was a designer in New York for many years. I went to fashion school. I'd always wanted to be a designer. In 2017, I found myself in between jobs for the first time and really had time to think about what I wanted to do in the next step of my career. I was mostly an outerwear and leather designer for garments for contemporary and luxury brands in New York. And almost every brand I worked with would ask me to whip up some accessories or handbags for the presentations or the runway shows at New York Fashion Week. And so after the third company, I thought, maybe I should learn how to make handbags. That could be a really great next step for my career. And did some research and realized that one of the best schools for learning the art of making handbags was in Florence, Italy. So I booked a trip to come to Florence, and I also went to Milan to look at another school, but it was certainly that the best places to learn handbags were in Italy. And that was in May of 2017. And I went to the Scuola del Cuoio, which is in the Church of Santa Croce. If you're ever here in Florence, in Santa Croce Square, it's one of the oldest leather schools in all of Italy. And I fell in love because, I mean, Santa Croce Church is a beautiful Renaissance church. And here you are just studying handbags and fashion in this unbelievable Renaissance setting, in this unbelievably inspirational artisan-filled city. And I knew I had to move there. Originally, I thought that I would move maybe for 6 months to a year and then move back to the US and continue my career in New York. But I fell in love with Florence. I ended up meeting my husband, who's Italian.
I know that's like so exciting. So is he Italian or is he American in Italy?
He is Italian, born and raised in Florence, many generations back. Very Fiorentina, as we say. And we met honestly the first night that I came to Italy to look at the school is the first night that we met. So, you know, it must have been a little bit in the cards or beschert, or as you say.
What did you discover about the leather waste in Italy or just in areas?
Once I finished the leather school, I ended up staying in Italy, in Florence, and working in a luxury leather factory where we made handbags for runway shows and also small production for high-end brands. And that was the first time I started seeing how much leather was getting thrown away at the production level. And I honestly couldn't believe it. On average, in all accessories production worldwide, 20 to 40% of leather is discarded. But in luxury production, it can be all the way up to 60% because the quality control standards are so high. And so seeing that really, it was my aha moment of, wow, okay, this I've never seen before. I've never heard about it before. And this shouldn't be happening. So leather is a natural product. The leather that's used in the fashion industry is a byproduct of the meat industry, but it is a natural product. It's not like fabric. So there are going to be scratches, changes in the texture of the leather, maybe holes in certain places or little markings that can't be accepted, especially at the luxury level when you are selling a bag for $1,500, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 and up. The absolute entirety of the bag has to be as perfect as possible. In lower level leather goods production, they can accept more differentiations in the material, but at the luxury level, because they have the margins built in and because there's such a high quality control standard and an expectation for the product to be perfect for the price, it creates even more waste than the average. So my original idea was to start a handbag brand made entirely from leather scrap and overstock, which is all of the leather that you see behind me on this wall is overstock left over from local sampling and production here in our studio in Florence, Italy. But my original idea was actually to start a handbag line called CMA that was hand woven entirely from luxury leather scrap, so that we could also support local independent artisans that I had come to work with. The brand was founded in 2020, so it was right smack during the pandemic, and I really wanted a way to be able to support artisans that were struggling a little bit here in Italy, and really celebrate the artisan handmade culture that you find so much here in Florence. I actually have a couple examples with me, and so here is an example of a hand woven piece of leather panel. And the reason that I was inspired to do the hand weaving was to find a way to utilize lots of different leather and lots of different scraps and really design into the waste, use design as a way to solve this problem of excess waste and celebrate the fact that it was utilizing all different leathers, so that by the time you would see it finished in a bag, you could never imagine that it would have been leather waste and would have gotten thrown away and put in landfills. It just looks like a beautiful high-end woven or macrame leather bag. So that was my original idea. That's what set me on the path. Very soon after that, I realized that I really needed to build a lot more infrastructure in collecting and sorting and rescuing this leather scrap. And that led me to co-found Zero Lab right outside Florence in Scandici. It is a leather upcycling center, the first leather upcycling center in Italy, and a sustainable design hub. So it is where CMA is housed, but we also support a lot of other emerging designers, independent brands, and artisans in the community.
That's amazing. I understand that 50 tons of leather is discarded in Italy. Oh, Tuscany.
The latest report for the last 2 years showed 260 tons of leather that was disposed of. That is what we know of and what is measured in pounds. That equates to around 400,000 pounds, which is the weight of a Boeing Dreamliner. So it's kind of like just dumping a Boeing Dreamliner into the Tuscan countryside every year. It's a lot. It's a very high quality material, and it's largely categorized as industrial waste, meaning that it's in the same classification as car batteries, paint, toxic chemicals. So it has to be thrown away in special landfills. A lot of other times it's burned as fuel for other trash, as they burn other trash because it makes very good fuel, or it's mashed up into insulation along with mattresses and lots of other things that we can't find any better use for. And here at Zero Lab, we really want to repurpose this leather before it gets to that level, because it's a very high quality, expensive material, especially Italian luxury leather. And we should be able to repurpose and reutilize it through design, through the fashion industry, through a network of artisans and independent designers and emerging designers before we start mashing it up into wall insulation. There just has to be a better way.
So what is your vision for the future of Zero Lab?
Our vision for the future is to be able to reduce the amount of leather waste that's going to local landfills by 70%. We're not going to say that we can get to zero right away. Obviously, the big shining goal is getting to zero, but there's probably always going to be a little bit of waste, but let's reduce that by 70% and also support emerging designers just like me and the artisan community here in Florence, and make it more accessible to re-access this material. A lot of times when working with luxury brands, there's such protection and secrecy in terms of the materials. Obviously, when we get materials that have logos on them, we don't reutilize them or resell them. So there's still a lot of protection and secrecy within the luxury industry, but we are hoping that by working in a really transparent way. For example, every year we publish exactly how much leather we've taken in, what we've done with it, what our network of artisans and designers look like. Every day we're on social media showing different leather waste, what we're doing with it.
Can you explain, do any animal rights advocates or activists or anyone give you any trouble, or are they supportive of your work?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, there's a lot of controversy around the usage of real leather. We try to advocate for, as long as this material is being created and used, using it to its highest possible good, and reducing the amount of waste that's created. There is a lot of nuance when you talk about material sustainability in general. For example, most of the vegan leather materials that are on the market have a large percentage of plastic or polymer binders in them. So they don't last as long, nearly as long as real leather. They tend to only last a couple of years. And when they are disposed of, it's like throwing away more plastic. So it's not always a more sustainable version than using real leather. Real leather can be very sustainable and it can be very unsustainable. Obviously, we know that with factory farming, it's a huge problem, but at the same time, the usage of real leather has decreased over the years in favor of vegan materials. But that also means that we are just disposing of a lot of hides that aren't being used after meat production, because globally meat production continues to rise. Last year in the United States alone, according to a recent New York Times article, we burned or buried 5 million hides that just weren't used. There was no market for them. So all of that to say that it's very nuanced, but our main goal is that as long as these materials are being made, and any material, you know, we hope in the future that it can be lab grown leather. We want to keep the leather waste or the material waste from going to landfills or incineration and creating more carbon in the atmosphere and more methane gases, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, I know, it's just a constant loop, right? A constant circle. Like, what do you do? What's right? What's wrong?
It's so nuanced. And that's why people ask me all the time. We have so many student workshops here at Zero Lab, at our studio. And they ask me all the time, so what is the most sustainable option? And I usually always say it's buying better and buying less. And that's really the most sustainable thing you could do, is find products and brands that you really believe in, or that are doing, that are doing the best they possibly can in an imperfect system, but then also investing in quality made pieces that when you do decide you don't want them anymore, you can thrift them or resell them or give them away. Somebody would actually want them instead of them, getting shipped overseas and ending up on a beach somewhere. And that you look.
Sorry. How many times can you reuse leather? Let's say I give my bag to like a Real or something. How many times can they clean it up and reuse it? Or I don't know if that's the exact method of saving leather, but
Absolutely. It can be honestly repurposed and revitalized for generations. If you have a really good, really well-made leather bag and you take care of it, you store it properly, it's not in a place that has too much moisture or gets wet or crumpled up in the back of your closet. If you keep some tissue paper in there and keep it with its nice form, maybe in a dust bag when you're not using it. There's also so many services out there like Rebag and the Leather Spa in New York, where you can take your leather goods too, and they can refurbish them in a way that is just not possible with a lot of vegan leather alternatives.
to say natural is best. How is the leather industry receiving your work? Or
The local industry has been very supportive of our project, especially of Zero Lab. As with anything in Italy, it's all about personal relationships. So it definitely took a little bit of nudging to get through the door at first, or a lot of nudging, I should say. But it's a very traditional industry. It tends to be a very male-dominated industry. So think for the most part, they're excited to have some new energy. My business partner and co-founder is Italian and grew up here, so it definitely helps to have the international piece, me, and then also my business partner, the local connection. But we're both very young, and so I think people are excited to have a little bit of new energy.
That's great. I know. It's great. It's great. And the wonderful design, I love it, but how are the design of your bags received?
The response has been really incredible. We are expanding to retail stores. We've gotten some really great press, not just from sustainability blogs like Echo Cold and things like that, but also from publications like Philadelphia Magazine and others. And we are just really excited to bring CMA to even more people and to bring our mission. My goal is always that when you look at our bags, you would never know at first that this was leather scrap or leather waste. They just look like beautiful artisan made bags that can convert and be worn multiple ways so that they can really do a lot for you in your closet. But then when you get up close and you read the tag and you discover that they are also made from rescued leather, that it's just that added bonus that upcycling and circularity can be and should be as beautiful as new product. And it doesn't have to have that upcycled or, made at home kind of look.
Okay, one last burning question. So this is really burning because I don't know, I'm afraid to cut I know you say some people like cut the fringe and angle them. I'm afraid to make the wrong cut and then I can't go back. What do you do? Explain that process. I love it. I think it's great.
So the original fringe, I believe, on the bag that you got is 45 centimeters. Sorry, I'm in Italy, so we're going to speak in centimeters, but you can just cut it like you would give yourself a haircut. Just take a tape measure or a ruler and decide how long you want the fringe. Yeah, that would be cool to do them also angled. Like right now, they've always been straight. But the idea that you can cut them to your own length, I know some people have gone really short. That's what I've seen, is going a lot shorter, which if you're a little shorter is understandable. But if you do it, you have to send me a picture. Fringe. And then just kind of, I like to just kind of smooth it out on a table and cut straight across, measuring every few strands or so to make sure that it all looks even. That's the only thing. Once you cut, it's cut. So maybe start a little bit longer than you'd want to go and inch up rather than going too short right away, but just go for it.
So angling, so do people angle or is it only straight across? Or
you can really make it your own. I'd love to see it angled. That's a pretty good idea. I actually hadn't thought of that. So far, everybody's done them straight. But they're our newest bag for spring and for fall. So I'm sure a lot more people will see them as they go into stores and things like that in the fall. So there'll be lots more versions.
Oh, wonderful. I'm so excited. Also, what would I do with my scraps? Do I send them back to you?
You can send them back to me.
Okay.
I will make sure to properly dispose of them or reuse them.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us and for helping us out with this wonderful sustainability idea. I love it.
Thank you so much for having me. I love talking to you today. And thank you for supporting CMA and Zero Lab. you.